दिसंबर 1984 वो रात हम नहीं भूल सकते जबकि इस यूनियन कार्बाइड से MIC गैस लीकेज हुई और लोगों को मौत की नींद सुलाती हुई चली गई। जो आज हमारे बीच नहीं है, वो लोग, वो नौजवान, वो माँ और बहनें जो कि अपने घरों के अंदर सो रही थी, यूनियन कार्बाइड से गैस लीकेज हुई और लोगों को मौत की नींद सुलाती हुई चली गई। मुर्दाबाद, यूनियन कार्बाइड मुर्दाबाद, यूनियन कार्बाइड मुर्दाबाद।
पानी की बहुत ज़्यादा परेशानी है। इतने सालों से हम लोग जहरीला पी रहे, साफ पानी चाहिए। जो आज तक हम लोग जहरीला पी रहे, बच्चे हमारे बीमार हैं, सब पूरा मोहल्ला परेशान है। इसलिए हम लोगों की लड़ाई जब तक वो मानेगा नहीं, जब तक लड़ाई जारी रहेगी और लड़ाई लड़ेंगे।
In 1984, a gas leak from a Union Carbide Corporation factory in Bhopal killed up to 25,000 people.
It was one of the world's worst industrial accidents. More than 30,000 people are believed to have died from the effects of toxic chemicals released into the air from this factory, the Union Carbide plant in the central Indian city of Bhopal.
पानी पीना है और जो हम जिंदगी ऐसी जबरदस्ती की जी रहे हैं।
Thousands of tons of toxic waste just lie buried. There is 346 tons of waste that is in the warehouse, and there is thousands of tons of waste that are on the surface of the factory premises.
This was the plant that was responsible for causing the world's worst industrial disaster, and now it had been abandoned in a condition where it had become a source of pollution. The most recent study that was done shows that this water pollution is spreading.
More than 3,500 died in the immediate aftermath of the disaster after inhaling the fumes. Thousands more were to perish as toxins seeped into the ground around the plant, poisoning water supplies.
जो आज 25 साल हो गए, उसके बाद भी उसका सुरक्षित तरीके से डिटॉक्सिफिकेशन या ट्रीटमेंट ऑफ द सॉइल या न्यूट्रलाइजिंग द केमिकल जो भी टॉक्सिक वेस्ट है उसका नहीं किया गया।
गैस राहत मंत्री बाबूलाल गौड़ ये कह रहे हैं कि अभी कोई गैस की वजह से कोई बीमार नहीं है, कारखाने का ज़मीन पूरी तरह से शुद्ध है और 100% लोग 100% शुद्ध पानी पी रहे हैं। ये सरासर झूठ है, अभी और झूठ निकलेंगे।
Groups working with affected children say that children in Bhopal today are 10 times more likely to be born with birth defects than children in the rest of the country.
और इसी में माँ बाप परेशान है। वैसे वो औलादें भी अब माँ के ऐसे पैदा हो रही हैं, बहुत से बच्चे ऐसे
खुद मेरे मोहल्ले में कई बच्चे ऐसे हैं, कई औरतें बहुत बेकार।
By refusing to clean up the poisons in the water and the soil, Union Carbide Corporation is committing crimes on a large number of people.
किसी को सांस की बीमारी हो रही है, किसी का हार्ट खराब है, किसी की आंखें खराब हैं। अभी तक जो है मरीज बढ़ते ही जा रहे हैं, कम होने का तो।
People in Bhopal are still suffering, there's still people dying, and the next generation is getting affected. There is horrific congenital malformations they're born with. So the fact that the suffering hasn't ended and that injustice continues, and the individuals and agencies responsible for this mass disaster remain unpunished.
This little box is lined with Union Carbide's super insulation. It's not much to look at. Just a layer of paper, a layer of foil, and it would still be hot. If you don't think it's as good as we say it is, watch the birdie.
Union Carbide Corporation is this American transnational that was involved in the world wars. In the midst of what's called the Green Revolution, Union Carbide decided to locate a pesticide manufacturing unit in Bhopal. They started in about 70s as a formulation plant, just mixing different pesticides. With time, they back-integrated production of methyl isocyanate. They knew right in 72 that the methyl isocyanate plant they were building in Bhopal would be untested technology, in their own words, and that its safety was not known. On the evening of 2nd December, the workers were just doing routine cleaning operations.
उससे कनेक्टेड लाइन का वाटर वॉशिंग करना था, क्योंकि पाइपलाइनों के बहुत बुरी तरह चोक होने से जो सॉलिड था वो डिज़ोल्व नहीं हो रहा था। इस वजह से पानी का बैकअप हुआ, तो ये पानी जो है टैंक में वेंटिलेटर से भरते हुए MIC स्टोरेज टैंक की तरफ गया।
Large quantities of the water entered the tank, and this caused an exothermic reaction. That's a chemical reaction that releases a lot of heat. Huge quantities of the gas started leaking. People got up from sleep because of the gas. It was so strong, so pungent. So they came out of the houses, they saw other people running, they started running, just hundreds of thousands of people running. The gas had actually covered the entire city.
"50,000 injured have been counted, but up to 200,000 may be affected in the long term. Cerebral palsy has begun to afflict survivors. The doctors hardly know how to relieve the suffering.
सबसे पहले तो उन बच्चों को करते हैं जो जन्मजात विकलांग हैं, जो यूनियन कार्बाइड से जहरों से पीड़ित हैं, चाहे वो पानी से हो, चाहे वो गैस की वजह से हो। वो दूसरी और तीसरी पीढ़ी में पैदा हुए हैं, तो उनके लिए चिंगारी रजिस्ट्रेशन करती है यहाँ पे, और उनको थेरेपी देने के लिए डॉक्टर लगाए हुए हैं जो थेरेपिस्ट हैं। उनकी मेडिकल जांच करवाई जाती है, डॉक्टरों की सलाह ली जाती है, उन्हें वो चिंगारी इलाज भी दिलवाती है। अगर किसी का सर्जरी होना,
अभी हम तो चलते तो मतलब अभी हम खड़े हुए थे ना।
अच्छा, पहले नहीं चल सकते?
नहीं, पहले दोनों पैर ऐसे टेढ़े थे।
अच्छा। ऑपरेशन चिंगारी नहीं करवाया था?
हाँ, चिंगारी नहीं तो करवाया।
कहाँ करवाया था? So he's talking about the hospital where he was operated. And all the expenses was borne by Chingari Trust.
दूसरा उनको इस लायक बनाने की कोशिश है चिंगारी की कि वो किसी के मोहताज ना रहें।
मैं उस बारे में मैं भूल जा।
यहाँ पे रजिस्ट्रेशन तो बहुत है, नियर अबाउट 165 करीब है रजिस्ट्रेशन, जिसमें से डेली हम लोग अभी 25 से 30 लोग बुलाते हैं, क्योंकि अभी छोटा होने के कारण ये सारे बच्चे आ नहीं पा रहे हैं, जिसमें से कुछ MR, कुछ CP, कुछ मतलब डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ पेशेंट्स हैं। तब जाके इनमें बहुत सारे सुधार आ पाते हैं।
आपसे बोला जाए कि आपकी एक ख्वाहिश है, एक चाहत है, तो क्या है वो बताइए, क्या होगी एक ख्वाहिश आपकी?
ये चल सके।
But isn't it rather shaming that for so many years after that terrible tragedy, poisonous chemicals were still there?
नहीं, इसमें सच्चाई नहीं है।
No, there's no truth in it. There was chemical waste there, and it was decided that waste would be disposed of, according to the instructions of the Supreme Court. But there was nothing hazardous for human lives there, immediately or later on.
And now we are here to release our study on the toxic legacy of Union Carbide's factory in Bhopal. And there is a lot of talk in the government that, and we have read some reports, that the site is not toxic. Outside the factory, we collected 11 groundwater samples. We found mercury in one sample, which is 24 times the drinking water standard. All the samples that we collected from this site were heavily contaminated with organochlorine pesticide, chlorinated benzene pesticide, and heavy metals. Let me conclude. We believe that Bhopal is not a one-time disaster. It is a continuing disaster simply because there is a continuing groundwater contamination and contamination of the environment of Bhopal because of UCIL.
Why is there this contradiction in what the government is saying?
I mean, you'd have to ask the government, and I think it's a very good question to ask the government. The Indian government is submitting a request for relief to the U.S. court saying we support this case. We want Union Carbide to clean up this plant and this pollution. At the same time, the government is making statements that there is no pollution problem. Every time an Indian politician makes a statement like this, this is Union Carbide submits it to the American court and says, look, even their own government says there's no problem. This is a class action. The case has been pending since 1999. The plaintiffs are people from the affected communities and people who are suffering from health effects.
From the 80s onwards, Union Carbide Corporation USA cut costs in every way possible. And For a plant that was already unsafe by design, straight away it meant reduction of safety.
साथ ही इन्होंने जो भी सेफ्टी इक्विपमेंट यहाँ प्रोवाइड किए हैं उसमें जैसे रेफ्रिजरेशन सिस्टम जो स्टोरेज टैंक के लिए प्रोवाइड किया गया था तो हमेशा MIC को लो टेम्परेचर पे रखना मतलब ज़रूरी था सुरक्षा की दृष्टि से परंतु इन्होंने सन मई 1984 में
They shut down the refrigeration unit just to save something like $70 a day, which meant that the temperature of the methyl isocyanate tank was unsafe.
Behind is a storage tank number 610. इसका नंबर 610 है जो MIC स्टोरेज टैंक है प्रोसेस वेंट लाइन में कुछ फॉल्ट था जिस वजह से टैंक प्रेशर होल्ड नहीं कर रहा था और इसी फॉल्ट की वजह से पानी टैंक के अंदर गया.
While the water entering into the tank may have been the immediate trigger of the disaster, the fact that all of the safety systems were turned off was certainly contributing to the disaster. The fact that MIC was not being stored as it was originally required to be stored at 0 degrees Celsius, that fact contributed. So that you really had a series of causes coming together.
दुर्घटना के बाद मुझे पता चला कि MIC प्लांट की जो टेक्नोलॉजी इंडियन कार्बाइड कॉर्पोरेशन ने प्रोवाइड की थी जो अनप्रूवन टेक्नोलॉजी थी उसको उन्होंने जांचा परखा नहीं था कि सुरक्षित है या नहीं है. Because I was working with Union Carbide in India Limited, that's why I regret. But it was not in control of the workers. Everything was in control of higher management.
There were criminal charges for an offense known under Indian law as culpable homicide, which would be the equivalent of manslaughter. And Union Carbide had been served, but had refused to appear to face those criminal charges.
With me today is Warren Anderson, our chairman, who, as you know, has just returned on a trip from India. So I want to take this opportunity first to express my deep sympathy to all of those that were involved in that terrible tragedy in Bhopal. And when I first heard of the initial reports on Monday, the 3rd of December, they were sketchy at best. By the time Tuesday morning arrived, the magnitude of the tragedy had become quite apparent. Now, Friday morning, we took that early flight, and we arrived and landed at Bhopal.
There was a subdued crowd waiting at the airport to lobby Union Carbide chairman Warren Anderson. But the day's events were to take an extraordinary turn, with dramatic developments almost hourly. First, Mr. Anderson never got to meet the victims of Bhopal, or indeed his own engineers. He was whisked away in a police car to the company's guest house in the hills above the town.
We arrested Mr. Anderson and his team of people who came. I think he came because he thought it was his responsibility to be here. I think so. I mean, that's at least the least I would do if I was him. I would feel responsible.
Mr. Anderson had taken refuge behind the locked gates and was definitely not receiving visitors. Then the local police superintendent drove out with the startling news that Mr. Anderson and 2 local Union Carbide executives were under arrest.
Tell us exactly who you've arrested, sir. Huh? Can you tell us exactly who you've arrested?
Mr. Gokhale, Mr. Manohar, and Mr. Anderson. These are the 3 names they have given us.
You've arrested Mr. Anderson,
yes.
the world chairman.
Yes.
There was a decision taken at the highest levels that Mr. Anderson and everybody should be arrested. By then, the world media was there, and everybody knew that he was coming.
The magistrate informed the 2 top officers of UCIL who were with me and myself that we were charged with violations of several Indian laws, generally relating to criminal negligence.
Mr. Anderson had been arrested on charges of criminal and constructive negligence, offences carrying a possible 2-year jail sentence and, theoretically, no chance of bail. Not even the company's lawyer could see the men, as they were confined under house arrest.
We're here to solve a problem, and I'm here as representative of the U.S. government to lend any assistance possible.
Are you surprised that the chairman of Union Carbide has been arrested
Yes,
so
I
swiftly?
am. Since he's here to try and solve a problem, I'm very surprised.
At the Madhya Pradesh state headquarters, a senior official confirmed the government would be seeking compensation for damages and then launched a bitter attack on Union Carbide.
This government cannot remain a helpless spectator to the tragedy and knows its duty towards thousands of innocent citizens whose lives have been so rudely and traumatically affected by cruel and wanton negligence on the part of the management of the Union Carbide.
Then, of course, he got bailed and went back in the evening.
Very clearly, Warren Anderson had jumped bail. He promised to appear in court whenever called, but he just jumped bail. The Indian government has sent request for extradition of Warren Anderson, but the US government has denied these requests. The US government says they won't send Warren Anderson to face trial. The proposal for the methyl isocyanate plant, it was Warren Anderson who approved it. And it was Warren Anderson who was informed about deteriorating condition of safety in the plant. All this was his personal knowledge.
I mean, the whole notion of a corporation is based on what's called the limited liability. Limited liability means that the individual participants in a corporation cannot be charged with crimes that the corporation commits. They can to a very limited extent. One of the major crimes is corporate manslaughter. You know, a corporation acts in such a way that kills people. The managers and the CEO and the shareholders have limited liability. I mean, it's not that they have a disregard for human life. They may be the nicest people in the world. You know, maybe they give to charity and who knows what. But in their institutional role as managers of a corporation, there is a task that they have to follow. That task is to maximize profit and market share. If they don't do that, they're out, and somebody else is in who does do it.
The Indian government, meanwhile, declared itself the sole representative of the victims and proceeded to sell out the case for $470 million, which was so cheap that Union Carbide stock went up by $2 a share when the settlement was announced.
People could not believe that it could be such a gross sellout because the Indian government agreed to settle all past, present, and future liabilities for a sum as small as $470 million. People received as little as $500 for lifelong injuries, and the guilty are unpunished.
मेरा तो ये मानना है कि जो हो गया उसको तो हम अब रोक नहीं सकते, मगर जो हो रहा है उसको रोक सकते हैं। वो सरकार को कम से कम अब तो 25 साल हो गए, अब तक तो कर देना चाहिए, जैसे कि लोगों को साफ़ पानी मिलना चाहिए पीने का, जो कि आसपास का पानी जो ग्राउंड वाटर कंटेमिनेट हो चुका है, वो साफ़ पानी मिलना चाहिए लोगों को। और उसके बाद ना उनको ज़िंदगी बचा है उनका लोगों का जो गैस पीड़ित है उनको अच्छा इलाज मिलना चाहिए ताकि वो बाकी का ज़िंदगी अच्छे से जी सकें। और जो गैस पीड़ित माता पिता हैं या जो पानी पीड़ित माता पिता हैं जिनके बच्चे विकलांग पैदा हो रहे हैं, उनके भविष्य को सोचकर कुछ ऐसा इंतजाम किया जाए ताकि वो बच्चे अपनी ज़िंदगी अच्छे से जी सकें और उनके माँ बाप उनको अपने ऊपर बोझ ना समझें। You're welcome. You're welcome. Los Angeles Times.
Good afternoon, CHRY. This is Ome Sama Rahmatullah, and I am joined on the line by Sanjay Verma, who is an activist in the Bhopal campaign and also a survivor of the terrible disaster in 1984. So, Sanjay, can you tell us a bit about what happened to you on the night of December 3rd, 1984?
Well, I was born in July 1984, so I was a few months old when it happened. So I remember when I asked my sister what happened to our parents. And the reason why I asked my sister, because I had no one with me at the parents' meeting at my school. So she was like, they all died that night, and then she told me about that night. So I asked her, how did we survive? So she was like, I ran away. I took you in my arms. I wrapped you in a blanket, and I ran away. So that's the reason we survived.
अपने यहाँ भाई बहन अपने 8 थे ना, 4 बहन थे 4 भाई थे, सब अपना फैमिली एक साथ थी, रहना खाना पीना सब साथ में था, अपने मम्मी पापा भी थे, सब ठीक था घर में अपने। और जिस रात में हुआ है हम लोग 2-3 बजे के बाद हुआ, हम लोग 12 बजे के बाद जब बाहर सब आवाज़ आने लगी तो सब जो सोते रह गए अपने यहाँ। मैं धुआं लग रहा था उस टाइम, धुआं लगा था, कुछ दिख नहीं रहा था, जैसे लाइट जल रही उसकी रोशनी भी नहीं लग रही थी, आँख में लगे जैसे मिर्ची नहीं होती है, कम्बल में उड़ा लिया था, साथ में ले लिया था अपने, क्योंकि मुझे लग रहा मम्मी को जब डेथ हो गई थी उनकी ना तो ले गए थे, ये नहीं बताते कि ख़त्म हो गई हैं। अपनी दीदी की तो यहाँ जलालपुर में शादी हुई थी, अपने घर गई थी भोपाल, तो वहीं डेथ हो गई उनकी। उसके 6 महीने हो गए होंगे शादी के उनके। सबसे ज़्यादा अपने फैमिली में सबकी डेथ हुई, 7 लोग ख़त्म हुए अपनी पूरी फैमिली के, पूरे भोपाल में सबसे ज़्यादा। और सबके यहाँ तो एक कभी 2 हैं ऐसे हैं, अपने घर में सबसे ज़्यादा की वो हुई है मृत्यु। उसी से पूरा बर्बाद हो गया अपना घर पूरा। न हम लोग को माँ बाप का प्यार मिला, कुछ नहीं मिला।
Why we did this study? We just wanted to assess the extent of chemical contamination within the factory and outside and see if there is a linkage. We tested 5 chlorinated benzene compounds, 4 organochlorine pesticides. We tested 2 carbamate pesticides. We tested 5 heavy metal, again using EPA methodology, lead, cadmium and chromium, and mercury and arsenic. We found very high amount of lintane, aldicarb and 1,2-dichlorobenzene. We found mercury as high as 8,000 ppm. In fact, when we went to the plant, I took this photograph and you can still see mercury in the structure of Savin plant. And therefore, it's not surprising that the plant has very high amount of mercury.
We have received very important documents in this case that I think establish very clearly that Union Carbide knew in advance, as early as 1973, that this pollution problem that we're facing today, they knew this was going to happen. And they went ahead with this project despite that specific knowledge.
As early as 1973, Union Carbide engineers were warning the company that the Bhopal plant presents an unusual challenge in that there's no nearby running body of water into which waste can be discharged. So from the design stage, waste disposal at the Bhopal plant was a major concern. A lot of the waste streams from the plant emptied into the area of the plant known as the solar evaporation pond area.
So they believed that they can get rid of some of toxic waste by evaporating it, and at the end when they had like some kind of sludge, so they took all the sludge from the ponds and they dumped here. And you see this black lining underneath the ground of this landfill. They believed that this kind of lining, if they put this lining underneath the ground, it can keep the toxic waste away from the soil. You'll see lining underneath the ground everywhere around here.
We believe the solar evaporation ponds continues to be a source of the subsurface water pollution that's now leaching through the aquifer and spreading into these surrounding communities, and can be detected as far away as 3 kilometers from the main plant campus.
Solar evaporation pond, what we found very high was chromium. UCIL was using chromium as a coolant in its plant and was disposing this chromium at solar evaporation pond.
This December will mark the 25th anniversary of the tragedy at a Union Carbide India Limited facility in Bhopal. And even today, it continues to evoke strong emotions globally, and rightfully so. We're saddened, however, that despite all that has been written about the tragedy in the past 25 years, so many misconceptions still exist about Union Carbide and its role. The government of India is the appropriate entity to address any ongoing needs expressed by the people of Bhopal. We are saddened by the fact that the site remains unremediated, adding to the tragedy that has occurred. The site today is in the hands of the state government of Madhya Pradesh. The state government owns the site, and together with the central government, they are trying to get the site cleaned up.
Union Carbide is now a wholly owned subsidiary of Dow Chemical.
Dow Chemical took over Union Carbide in 2001.
On August 3rd, the boards of both Dow and Union Carbide approved a definitive merger agreement that will create the world's second-largest chemical company.
And Dow taking over does complicate things and doesn't, because the law on contamination is very clear in India and in the US, and which is the polluter pays principle.
The polluter pays principle is the idea under international law that the liability for pollution should always be traced back to the polluter. The polluter should not be able to externalize the costs of pollution onto society at large or onto third parties. It shouldn't be the government's responsibility to clean up at public expense after private polluters.
Dow Chemicals made the decision to purchase Union Carbide knowing these liabilities were outstanding. So when you purchase the assets of a company, you purchase those liabilities.
Union Carbide has fully exploited the sort of international dimension of this problem. It informs the American courts that New York law can't apply because these events took place in India, but at the same time they say Indian law doesn't apply. So in effect, they're arguing that they're above the law.
So there are international rules of appropriate behavior for multinational corporations. Of course, international law has no enforcement power. Laws have to be enforced by somebody, so who's going to enforce it? If the United States doesn't enforce them, there's no law.
The process can change dramatically if the Indian government intervenes in this.
Has the court really summoned somebody from the government to come and...
They don't have the authority to summon the Indian government. But what they have done is said to the Indian government, if you want this relief, come and intervene in the case.
You want to say that the Indian government has not done anything in favor of the survivors in court of law?
They have submitted a letter.
Only letter, that's it.
That's it.
No lawyer, no nothing else. Only you are fighting in favor of the survivors.
Yes.
You will see.
Do you think there'll come a time where no longer have to talk about this anymore?
Like when we have all of our demands met?
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. And I think if we keep fighting like this, we will have a day like this.
हमारे अध्ययन से एक चीज़ तो बिल्कुल स्पष्ट निकलती है कि UCIL की जो फैक्ट्री है उसके अंदर जरूर जहर है जो अगर छुएंगे उससे कोई मरेगा नहीं। तो मैं समझ सकती हूँ क्यों मध्य प्रदेश गवर्नमेंट ये कह रही है कि जहरीला नहीं है, जहर नहीं है फैक्ट्री के अंदर, मगर ये भी बिल्कुल स्पष्ट है कि वो जहर ऐसा है जो आपके पूरे पर्यावरण के अंदर जैसे रिस रहा है। तो उसके साथ तो जैसे मैंने कहा पहला पहलू यही है कि सफाई होनी चाहिए, जल्दी होनी चाहिए।
God has given you this beautiful world with all the facilities, but God has given everything here. Why destroy it?
चलो पीछे हो जाओ जुलूस के देशभक्त साथियों और दिखा दो कि हमारा जोश अभी ठंडा नहीं हुआ। ठंडा क्यों नहीं हुआ? तो हमें इंसाफ नहीं मिला और जब तक हमें इंसाफ नहीं मिलेगा हमारा जोश बराबर और बढ़ता जाएगा।
Every year, millions of people are dying because of this unbridled pursuit of profit. What people in Bhopal are saying is that you cannot do it. You are not allowed to do it because life is sacred, and that cannot be violated.
सहारा दे रही है और अपनी ताकत जुटा रही है, तो एक दिन हमारी ये उम्मीद है कि उस दुनिया की ताकत से हम डाव कंपनी से अपना हक लेकर आएंगे।
The 25th anniversary is just a landmark. The 40th anniversary, the 50th anniversary will be as important for the final goal, and that goal is to clean the factory from all those toxic effluents. which still pollute the water that the people have to drink.
दुनिया में संदेश यही है कि इन कंपनियों के अपराधों के खिलाफ लोग समझें कि ये अपना पैसा बनाने के लिए हमें जो टीवी में दिखाते हैं, जो भी प्रोडक्ट इनका होता है उसकी बहुत तारीफ करते हैं, लेकिन उसके अंदर हमारी ज़िंदगी।
और डाव कंपनी को किसी शहर में, किसी मुल्क में ऐसा जहरीला कारोबार नहीं करने देंगे ताकि एक दूसरा फिर भोपाल बने।
Each anniversary gives us more spirit, gives us more encouragement. People around the world are helping for Bhopal, and we get more support every year than the previous year.
If there is justice in Bhopal, this world would be safer for all of us to live in because it would set a precedent.
A parent company cannot set up a subsidiary somewhere in the world, create a large-scale environmental problem there, and then when the time comes to fix liability, sell off its local subsidiary and then retreat to the United States or any other developed country and basically say that nobody can sue them here, or nobody can hold them accountable. So that's the sort of context in which if our litigation were to be successful, it would set an important precedent.